What is up, everybody? This is the ROC Spotlight podcast. I am your host, Dr. Matt Driscoll, owner and operator of Driscoll Chiropractic in Webster, New York. ROC Spotlight's mission is to connect others through an educational podcast. Each episode will highlight someone from Rochester, New York, in the health and wellness space who is thinking outside of the box, providing exceptional products and or services, and is elevating our community. Make sure to stay tuned after the podcast for more information on my practice, on my approach to healing, and a little bit more about myself. Thanks for listening, guys. Enjoy the show. Content. I get it. It's very overwhelming at times. I'm here to tell you there's only one storytelling platform that helps you keep calm and stay informed and inspired, and that's Flipboard. Flipboard curates the world's stories so you can be smarter in your work, life, and play. Choose from thousands of topics to personalize Flipboard and get the latest stories from the best publishers and experts delivered to you 24/7. When you see stories that you want to save or share, tap the plus button to add them to private or public collections. It's that simple. Used by millions of people every day, Flipboard is how people move themselves and the world forward. Get started now at flipboard.com. That's flipboard.com. Welcome back to the ROC Spotlight podcast. I am your host, Dr. Matt Driscoll, and today we have a very special guest in the house. We have another functional medicine doc, and the previous functional med doc, Dr. Pam Grover, that was the most listened to podcast to date. So no pressure, Dr. Kelly. But we're going to talk about stress today, and the big S word, and it affects all of us. It affects our brains, our bodies, and I think it's really cool that I'm publishing this now because Broken Brains 2 just got released this week. It's going to be over. It's a docuseries by Dr. Hyman, but it's just all about what is breaking down our brains and our health, and stress is a big one. So we're going to really dive into that today. I have Dr. Kelly Heron, like the bird, on today, and I'm going to introduce her. Dr. Heron has over 20 years of experience providing healthcare for women. In addition to allopathic medical training, she has completed a 2-year fellowship in integrative medicine under the direction of Dr. Andrew Weil. Her functional medicine training is through the Institute for Functional Medicine. Dr. Heron also has a master's degree in genetic counseling, as well as masterclass training in use of Opus 23, Pro Genetic Analysis Program. Welcome to the podcast, Doc.
Thanks.
How you doing today?
Good.
So let's dive right in.
One more little thing. I was just looking up stress and things like that. Apparently it's National Stress Month or something.
There you go.
Apparently we have an American Institute of Stress. I found that out.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, just trying to look for resources, and it is, I guess they have a month for everything. And
I like
this month
it.
Happens to be stress.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So tell me your story. You got a really cool story because you were my wife's OBGYN doc.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore, though.
No, not anymore.
So why did you leave OBGYN and open up a functional med practice?
I loved OBGYN. I really did. And as time goes on, and as we get a little bit older, we tend to do more of the I did more of the office work and less of the hospital work. And so I really focused in on that, and I have always had a preventive approach to things. And it's really sort of been in my DNA since I started working in medicine. And so it just kept coming up over and over. And ironically, I ordered a book on Amazon on integrative women's medicine. And then I ran into a colleague a couple of weeks later, and she told me about the fellowship program with Dr. Weil. And the book was written by the woman who ran the program. So, just a lot of little things. And it all felt right. You know how when you stumble on things or things present themselves, if you're ready, you know exactly what to do. And that's really been my path with integrative and functional medicine. Things, I'm ready, and so I recognize it when it comes up.
So why did you get into medicine in the healthcare field?
I kind of stumbled into it. After I graduated college, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went and I was a bench tech at Cold Spring Harbor, which is a genetic research lab on Long Island. And I did that for a while and realized I didn't want to do research. So I went to their educational portion. And so we would go and teach teachers how to teach molecular biology. It was fun. We had a van and we would go around the country, and we called it the Vector Mobile, and teach workshops. I got to go to Hawaii. We went all over teaching these workshops. So I got some research experience, real science. I got some teaching experience. And from there, I went to genetic counseling. I went to school for genetic counseling. I thought that was going to be it.
Right.
But then I got a taste of actually working with people. And I was like, yeah, I need more of this. And I can't just stick in this one little.
Right, all right.
So I applied to med school.
Very cool. Well, I really respect you for branching out into functional medicine, and there's such a big need everywhere for this, especially right here in Rochester. There's so many of us are sick, broken, confused with healthcare and with our own health and what to do. And that was probably a very difficult decision to branch out. Very comfortable, well-run practice where you're at for 20 plus years, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was at 2 different practices, but I was there for over 10 years, and
but
it was a very
I'm sure
difficult
this was
decision.
brewing for a while, this inner talk or whatever, to do it, and you went for it, so I respect that. So let's talk about stress today. So what is stress, in your opinion?
So, it depends on how you use the word. There's the physics definition of stress, like pressure or tension put on a physical object. The idea of psychological stress really didn't come about until around 1930 something with Hans, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Selle or whatever his name is, and he started talking about the adaptation syndrome, and that had the 3 phases. Most people are aware of this. You've got the first, the acute response to stress, right? And everything, your sympathetic nervous system, the one that makes your heart.
The bear comes in the room, right?
Exactly, right. And so everybody, the people I do better if I wait till the last minute. Those are the people that do great with that quick spike. And that comes along with a tremendous amount of hormonal changes. I think everybody knows your cortisol goes up, but there's a lot of other things that are going on. Then what happens is if that bear doesn't go away, or whether it's financial debt or difficulty in a relationship or difficult job, that cortisol being higher and all the other changes, you start to get your performance starts to go down. You start to see an irritability. And you can, if that is prolonged, you can start to see some actual physical chemical changes in your body. And then the final stage is if you don't respond during that time, you get to the point of exhaustion, which is where your body really doesn't have the reserves. And that's when you get people showing up with the chronic pain and chronic fatigue, and they can't move. And there's almost always you can watch it. It's like reading a story, and then you see where they end up. And so that's how I see stress.
Can we relate stress to almost inflammation? Because the acute inflammation is a good thing. We sprain our ankle, we want to repair that
and that's
injury.
Another part. So there's different types of stress, right? We can have psychological, we have infection stress, and that's what that acute is supposed to be. Initially, it will go in and fight the organisms,
but we don't want it lingering around long term.
Well, because then it suppresses the immune system,
right? The
high cortisol, and that actually not only makes you more vulnerable to infections, it makes you more vulnerable to actually cancer cells, because our immune system finds those and destroys them.
So I think we just answered the next question. Are there different types of stress? This is good. There are different types of stress.
Absolutely. Well, and there's the good stress and the bad stress.
Right.
And then when you talk about stress, there's, you could have a physical stress. I thought this was really interesting one of the ways they test a stress response is they put people's hands in ice cold water, and they see how long they can last.
Right.
And one of the things that they've done is they wanted to see how social situations would affect their ability. So they brought their partner in, and they did the whole experiment again. Nothing really changed. They brought their animal, they brought their pet in. 50% decrease in stress.
Crazy.
I think they were able to keep their hand in 50% longer. There was some measure, but there was
just by bringing their pet in.
Just by bringing their pet in. So it's amazing when everyone thinks that you have to start sitting in the lotus position and meditate. That's not necessarily how you have to deal with stress. You can have a cool dog or a cat.
So we know that stress is impacting our brains and our bodies, but I want to start with, I learned this from Dr. Hyman actually, our bodies. I really think we need to start repairing our bodies to then fix our brain, and not necessarily going to the brain first, because they're so interconnected.
Actually,
Touch on that
if
for me.
it's really, you're going at it all at once.
Okay.
Because the brain is so intertwined. And there are some things that, it's funny because you can go at stress a couple of different ways, right? So we all know what are the things. You got to eat right, you got to sleep, you got to exercise, those kinds of things. I think the big wild card is the cognitive reframing. So actually using your brain can be part of healing your body, right? So stress is really not a threat. It's your perceived threat. It's how you perceive it. Now, two people can see an angry dog here, and one person or a dog, one person has a phobia. Their body's going to go ballistic. I'm going to see the dog and I'm going to go crazy because I love dogs. So we're not all in the same reality. So, and there's a lot of people for all kinds of reasons of experiences or trauma that have distorted perceptions of the world. And that's media, that's everything, particularly women, right? We're supposed to, have a full-time job and, be a wife and a mother and take care of the house. And, and our perception is we're supposed to do all of that great. And if we don't, we're a failure.
All the things. Yeah, you guys have a lot on your plate.
So again,
it's
it's where the mind literally makes us sick. And, they found stress. They've done some studies prenatal, and this is not to freak out the pregnant women, but it's really interesting.
Kirsten, shut this off.
It's not bad. No, they did some studies on really dramatic things like women that were pregnant in 9/11. There was a big Canadian ice storm where people had no resources for weeks. And what they did is they followed these people out as children. So the mom is pregnant and they follow that baby. So these mothers, by definition, are under stress. And they actually found some changes in development, some neurologic changes, which they're bright, they're healthy, everything. But the way they respond to stress is different. Their hippocampus might be just a little bit smaller. And so that's nor good nor bad, but it's a challenge. So I'm a big fan of knowing, and this is part of what I do, is education is, if you're one of those people, you need to know that, right? Because number one, your body might respond differently. Your thoughts might be different, but then you can have some compassion for yourself and work and change that. There's also some genetic changes that literally alter how your body responds to stress. So there's a wide amount of variables. And then you have to say, I don't know where in the spectrum I am, but some people need to use more tools. And then, that's hard because some people, they're cool as cucumber.
Right.
And what that has to do with is when your stress hormones go up, the people that are cool as cucumber, they drop like a rock. Not a rock, but 60, 90 minutes, they're back to normal. People who don't respond well, they stay elevated. So they stay jittery. They stay,
It's kind of like heart rate variability, right? Like the body should respond.
Absolutely.
Quicker and recover. Okay, so is stress causing structural issues to our brains? Like, can they see that on an image where like the hippocampus is smaller or their brains are actually shrinking? Right. Or is it more of a functional issue that stress is, or is it both?
Right. So I know that the developmental prenatal, they've seen changes in the hippocampus. I think there's some hippocampal changes in adulthood, but I think my understanding is that it's the body that takes a toll, and it's things we can't see. So what happens is this all links. This is a network. We don't even fully understand it. Everybody thinks it goes from your hypothalamus to your pituitary to your adrenals, but there's sort of like the lizard brain in there. And we don't have, there's that anger part, the amygdala. And the more stress you have, the more easily that gets excited. So there are changes, but we can't see them in an image necessarily and put our finger on it.
Right.
But we know they're there.
So my listeners love practical tips
Yes.
that they can apply today. So what are a few practical tips to decrease our stress today?
So, again, there's the obvious ones. Caffeine, if you find it, I had someone it depends, because people, again, metabolize caffeine differently.
Right.
Some people get an energy boost, they burn it off, and they're fine. Other people...
I just gave her a cheers with my coffee mug.
But it's really listening to your body, because it's the same kind of thing where we feel like we should all be the same, and we're not. We're so different. So it's really listening to your body. How do you feel when you drink caffeine? And you may do it because you're tired, but then you're jittery. That's going to jack up your stress. A big one is sugar. Nobody really wants to hear that. Because what happens is sugar itself sets up a stress response. Right? It jacks up. And what happens...
Is this fructose too? Or is this any sugar, or this is white table
especially
sugar? Okay.
Well, this is refined
sugar.
I don't high corn fructose, not fruit.
Right.
I think that if it looks like it was grown or it's pretty hard to go wrong.
Gotcha.
If you're not modifying it. What's happened is we've modified all our foods and taken out a lot of the nutrients, and that's where we get in trouble, because our body doesn't know what to do with them.
So the added sugars we're talking here.
Yeah. We call them refined carbohydrates, because even your white breads and your other things that you think are fine, or your quote-unquote whole wheat bread, which is just brown white bread, will send your body, again, down that pathway. Because when you're in a stress response, some of the things that happen, everybody knows, your blood vessels constrict, your heart rate goes up, but your blood sugar goes up, right? Because you're getting energy to your muscles, so you can run away from, the bear in the room. But then that crashes, and sugar does a similar job on your body. So
you really you're looking at more nutritional sources. Right?
Nutritional is big. Exercise is a big one. So exercise, especially depending on where you're at. Now, some people who are very ill, they just getting outside and getting some sun and going for a walk is huge. Some people working in a pool. Some people need especially people that are fit, vigorous exercise really helps get their metabolism. It's a stress reliever, but it also physically alters their body. I tend to focus on the other forms of stress relief. And one of them is that cognitive reframing. And I think that is best attempted with people that you're close to, right? Sort of checking, almost like reality checking, right? Because how many times have you talked to a friend and they start telling you all this stuff about everything that's wrong with them, and you're looking and you're like, you got to be kidding, right?
Right.
So it's that, I think that's a really powerful tool. And they've known, social supports is directly related to stress, whether you have family, friends, whether you take time to do things with them. And that's a big one. I try to get all my patients, especially young moms, right? So they're working, and ask them the last time. I tell people, you don't even have to go out. If the kids are there, have somebody come over and just have coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
Community, absolutely. We are missing community.
You need to connect.
But
even if you're an introvert too.
Absolutely.
You still need those periods.
But there's some other things that I really like. And, there's some stuff that I don't know if it has scientific basis. I've looked at it. I'm very big on essential oils, but only in the smell. Like, what smell works for you? Like lavender, actually, augustifolia, has been shown to induce relaxation. That's just they've done studies. But what I like people to do is find, if a citrus works for you, link that to whatever you're doing. Like if you're trying to sit quietly for 10 minutes, great. If you're going to go to yoga, like I put frankincense on my yoga mat, before I do it. And then what I'm trying to do is treat myself like Pavlov's dog. That smell, if I'm always smelling that when I'm
you
doing,
associate that smell with relaxation.
Exactly. So it's almost like trying to condition my brain.
You're tricking the brain. Yeah.
And I've done that with my kids. I'm like, okay, you take this essential oil with you. And,
I like this.
Again, I'm sure it has a little bit of scientific, but I call myself like a common sense doctor. And to me, that's common sense. Right? Because
simplify it. Well, that's what
some
your
of
patients
people's
need.
most powerful memories are triggered by smell. So why not use that to our advantage? Yeah. Right? So it doesn't have to be, but other things that really, pets,
Yeah.
Believe it or not, just a faith. It doesn't have to be religion, but a faith in something greater than yourself. It has been shown to decrease people's stress. And also there's some things like a sense of being out of control. That's a big trigger of stress. Like everything happens to me. So learning how to identify what do you
All
have
the type A listeners, here we go, listen up.
Right, because there's things in life you don't have control over the weather. You know, you don't have control over so much in life. And identifying, wait, this is one of the things I don't have control over. So if I'm going to waste, if my brain is going to churn about it, that's going to cause a lot of stress, and I'm going to cause an impact on my body. You know. What
about anxiety? Is anxiety the same as stress, or anxiety triggers stress? It's becoming so common now.
Right. I know there are generalized anxiety disorders, and it's kind of like all of medicine, right? We take a bunch of symptoms and we give it a name. I heard 12% of millennials take a med for anxiety now. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If not higher. I think I just heard that this week on the radio. But
it's when you think of the stress response, so going back, the question is with anxiety, they find that some people have the physical symptoms of anxiety and then their brain follows. So they have the fast heart rate and they're sweating. And so they're literally having a physical response and the emotion comes afterwards. Or you can have the emotion and then the physical response comes after that. I think that, number one, we've also decided that nobody should ever be uncomfortable, right? So any discomfort is considered pathologic, so now we got to fix it. And so then you give everybody medicine, so I think that's part of it. And also,
and that's making them worse. A lot of people worse. It's just not getting at the root cause.
Yeah. And who knows what it's doing long term. A lot of people are, a lot of time we're medicating kids when they're young, but there's so much also going on in our environment that we don't really understand. Things like pesticides. I'm not like a tinfoil hat person at all, but it's amazing. If you read where they find glyphosate, it's unbelievable. Newborn urine has over 200 chemicals in it.
I know.
And
I just heard that from
that's
Dr. Hyman.
Frightening.
Crazy.
So, and that's people who are being careful because they're pregnant.
So what's in our urine then?
Right.
They didn't even take a breath yet.
So other things I tell people, really simple things, and this is tied into stress because there are physical stressors, right? So I tell people, don't, plastic water bottles. Of course we're going to drink from them here and there, but I've got my handy, big 40-ounce metal water bottle. There's glass water bottles, all those kinds of things because they're hormone altering chemicals in there. And I used to think, well, we live in the United States, so they have to be safe.
Nope.
As you get older and you have friends and other people that work, down at the FDA and the NIH, they're like, yeah, don't use that.
Right.
Don't say anything, but don't use those. But
we don't use those.
But seriously, there are things like that. And also now they're saying there's these microscopic actual plastic particles in plastic water bottles, and they report it by brand. I was horrified.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you can look that up. So simple things like that, like just try to minimize, plastic water bottles. I got rid of virtually all the plastic in my house, food-wise, right? I just got, a bunch of, what do you call them, mason jars and Pyrex. People are still taking, something take out and they throw it in the microwave in some type of, it's paper, but it's coated with plastic, and that's the only way your food isn't going to seep through it. So I think there's so many hidden physical stressors and toxins. And the thing is, our body only has so much power. We make all kinds of byproducts when we make energy, and our body has to deal with that, oxygen radicals and all kinds of waste products. So it's busy. But now you start throwing in all these other toxins.
Load it up.
Exactly. So the more we can keep...
detox.
Exactly. Because I've heard over and over, detox is crap, there's no such thing. And the bottom line is our body is doing it naturally. But if you overload it, it's going to increase your chances of getting sick.
So is it as simple as this stress epidemic? Stresses are going to come our way with work, financially, children, whatever, you name it. We need to get our brains and our bodies as healthy and as fit as we can. to overcome that stress, to handle that stress, to recover from that stress?
There's actually no, because there's actually a step before that. Some people have the philosophy that there's no such thing as now they break it down. There's a stressor, right? So there's something that triggers the stressor, and the stress is your body's response. However, everyone believes that that's inevitable. Of course, we're going to have all these stressors, but that's not the case. It's how you interpret it.
Gotcha.
And that's where I think there's a lot of room for
trying to catch it early.
Exactly.
Right.
And also, what are your priorities? That kind of thing. And I think it's easier, like older people are happy because they're just like, seriously, I am not going to worry about that. But when you're young and you're starting a family, you worry about money, you worry about, are your kids going to develop? Am I going to keep my job? Am I going to do my job well? I mean, there's so much to quote unquote worry about.
And that's impacting our health negatively.
It is absolutely big time, and it's causing autoimmune diseases are going through the roof. GI, how many people have GI problems? And that's one of the first things that happens is your GI tract goes ballistic with stress. Some people, headaches are one of the first symptoms, but almost
think about it though, right? You get a public speak, you get nervous, you get the butterflies in your stomach. That's your gut.
There's a direct connection, through your vagus nerve. There's direct connection between your brain and your intestines actually talk back to your brain as well.
Really?
Yeah, they do, and it's in
through the vagus nerve.
Neurologically, but there's also sort of hormone-like substances that talk back to the brain. And
like pheromones or something?
Not pheromones, but sort of neurochemical, hormonal chemicals. But
that's pretty cool.
But a lot of, as far as people trying to understand, and this is more of what I've taken from IFM, is stress can literally cause gut damage. And once you start to get gut damage, you start to, the theory is that you get some little pieces of proteins that actually start to get into the immune system. 60 to 80% of your immune system surrounds your gut. So now if you're getting these proteins here and there that are seeping through and your immune system is seeing them and they're going to attack them, they're foreign, right? So if this keeps happening and your gut's still, sort of seeping, things are seeping, and I'm not talking about your gut contents, I'm talking little bits of protein and if that happens enough, you're going to end up making an antibody or having an immune reaction to one of those, and it's called molecular mimicry. It's going to look like some body part.
Right.
So then what happens? Then you get that antibody. Oh, that looks like. Then it goes to the thyroid, and it's like, there it is again. So now you have antibodies to your thyroid. You've got autoimmune thyroid disease. Women, I would say the majority of women that come to see me by the age of 40 or 50 have some autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
Also inflammation, that also causes inflammation as well. But the autoimmune thing I see and that's gone up exponentially, like in the last 40 years, which isn't a long time when you're old like me. That's a short time. But I mean, that's real. And for millennia, it's been at a low rate. And you can just see the charts.
Right. Things
are changing.
Yeah. Dr. Heron was just talking about leaky gut syndrome. And go back to episode 7. We did a deeper dive into that, Dr. Grover and I. So if you want more information on leaky gut, what it's doing, how it's triggering inflammation systemically, the rise of autoimmune conditions, etc., go back to listen to that episode. What about a breathing tip? Do you give breathing exercises or any recommendations there to bring your stress down? Yeah,
everybody gets a 3-ring binder when they come to see me, and they get a food plan, and everybody gets at least one breathing. In other countries, they call it pranayama, which is actually a practice of breathing. I tend to start with 4-7-8, and there's actually a YouTube video of Dr. Weil, and it's Dr. Weil breathing 4-7-8, and he goes through, and we did this is one of the first things we did in our fellowship. We go there we went for residential weeks, and you do it. You do 4 breaths twice a day, and you do that for weeks, 4-6 weeks, and it starts to set up a pattern. And then when you're in traffic or something doesn't go, you can start to use that technique, or even just remembering to take a deep breath. But the idea of setting up a routine of breathing is, it gets you on the right track. Because people, when we're anxious, we have shallow breath. We're not really oxygenating very well. So yeah, breathing is absolutely, and that's one of the reasons yoga is good too. Because if you're in a good yoga class, they'll literally tell you each position will be at the same time as an exhale and then an inhale. So you literally are consciously breathing in and breathing out with every movement, and it changes the way your body works. It's just, if you do it enough, your body's like, okay, I got this.
Right.
Whereas when we're constantly under stress, our muscles are tense, our backs are tense, and we shallow breathe.
So YouTube 478 Dr. Weil, right? Breathing technique. Yeah. Awesome. So today was jam-packed with info. That was great. I think the takeaway, though, is stressor versus stress.
Right.
Stressor comes first. We need to consciously get our mind right to say, is this worth worrying about? Is this worth taking in and insulting my tissue, my body, my brain? Or do I just defend this and say, nope, not going there, and done, moving on? And
it's a long process, and anybody who thinks they can just say, oh, I'm not going to respond to that.
Right.
That's going to set you up for another. But absolutely, it's at least paying attention to, I'm going to decide what I let not rule, but what I'm going to spend my energy on, what I'm going, it's our response to it. So
right. But we all can work on our brains and bodies, absolutely. Our health too. Nutritionally, lifestyle modifications, all the stuff that you talk about with patients. So this is a good segue into talking about you and your practice. Mm-hmm. So tell me about your new practice.
So the name is Hygeia Life, and
this is where you can brag and plug yourself and say whatever you want about your practice.
I like the name.
Which is brand new. I do love the name. Tell me about the name.
So Hygeia, I was discussing it with my 16-year-old, trying to find a name.
Love it.
And she asked me what really needed to be in the name. And I said, well, woman, because I'm only going to see women, because I'm trained as an OBGYN. She goes, well, it doesn't exactly have to be the word woman. It could be like Greek goddesses. So we started doing a little research, and Hygeia is the goddess of wellness, of almost like taking care of yourself, nutrition. And she's actually also in the Hippocratic Oath. So we thought that would be a nice... I thought it would be a heads up to the woman in the Hippocratic Oath.
There you go.
And
it works.
And so so it just started in February, and I'm starting to see patients. I'm not a primary care doctor, mm-hmm. but it's I love it. It's what I was meant to do. I
think that's clear. You're very passionate about this, and
I get a little excited about it.
It's awesome. No, I do too. This is great. We're nerding out today. This is awesome. So who do you treat? Just females?
Just women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kids too?
Teens. I don't treat small children. They're little different beings. They're not the same. Their vital signs are different. So there's
I get it. We got an 18-month-old right now running around. Yeah.
Oh my God. And there are some very good functions. There's one particular Zendi Moldenauer.
Yeah.
She is and she works exclusively with kids and mm-hmm. adolescents. So I really feel strongly, if there's someone in town who can do it better than me, who's really focused on that, I'm going to send you there.
Right.
Because that's what they do.
Stay in your lane. Right.
Exactly. So that's why I don't treat...
So teenagers through geriatrics. I mean, it's... Okay, mm-hmm. Cool.
I'd say my target audience, a lot of people are more like 30 to 60-ish. That seems to be a big sort of...
And that's typically who listens to this, so...
Oh, really?
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I would say 35 to 45, kind of in that range, parents.
And which is a great time, because that's when you get to make some choices. You can say, what do I want the second half to look like?
Right. You've been taking care of everybody else, and now it's time.
Right.
To fix my health.
And that's sort of my catchphrase. If not now, when? Like what's it going to take?
Cool.
Do you need a diagnosis? Do you need to hit rock bottom, or can you start to make changes?
Your colors are very calming too. I like that. I like the turquoise.
That was my 16-year-old too.
She did it all. Is she working for you? Is she on payroll?
I don't know. Maybe
she
this summer.
She needs to be. What do you have planned for 2019 with the new practice? Workshops, events, anything like that?
So I don't have anything concrete, because I'm really, honestly, the electronics is my biggest stressor. What I would really love to do is...
You got a 16-year-old.
Huh?
You got a 16-year-old. Loop her in
for
the electronics.
I know, I should. She's going off to college. What I would love to do, and again, I haven't developed these, is I think I would love to have sort of group sessions, small group sessions of detox in a way that you detox everything. It's not just your food, it's your house, it's your electronics. It's, really trying to take an overview of your life. and weekly, a group like that. So that's one thing I really want to get into is women before they get pregnant. I really want to be able to get people, 6 months before they want to get pregnant to really try to get out, try to be as healthy and sort of, I hate to use the word toxin, but, as chemical free. How's that? And because they did a study of kids and they measured how much chemicals they had in their body. And it was directly, if they were breastfed, it was directly correlated to a pregnant woman's urine, how much chemicals she had in her urine correlated if they were breastfed to the child. So who knows? It could be environment. They live in the same place, but we do pass some of that on, and we don't know what we're passing on at this point. So, and again, I was the first one to say, well, we live in the United States. We have an FDA, EPA. I mean, the EPA doesn't even exist anymore. I know. So it's kind of sad, but we really need to take, and that's a plug for EWG, Environmental Working Group. Okay. It's a website, and it's a nonprofit, and they go in and they work for us. They work to keep things, keep things safe. But it's very practical. If you want to know what shampoos have the least chemicals, you just log on. And it's free, and you donate money if you want, but it's a great way because it's overwhelming, right?
It is.
And so here's, a website you can go on and be like, oh my God, my shampoo has all of that stuff in it. Because personal care products are a big exposure.
Oh yeah.
So those are my two things. Detox and hopefully some type of preconception.
I like it. How can listeners connect with you online to hear more about your practice and or make an appointment?
My website is Hygia Life Medicine. That's the best way to get information. I've tried to include a lot of information. And it's the same email address, which is hygeialifemedicine@gmail.com.
That's HYGEIA lifemedicine.com. And then same email address,
yep.
You said? Okay.
It's at gmail.com.
At gmail.com, perfect. And then phone number, all that's on there too, on the website.
Everything's on the website. Okay. Yep.
Cool. Can they make an appointment online or?
Yes, cool. You can register, you can make an appointment, everything online.
Now I have my foot in my mouth with Dr. Grover on because I assumed she was a PCP, primary care physician, and she's like, Matt, I need to interrupt you. I'm not.
Right.
So I'm assuming you're not a primary care physician as well.
No.
Okay.
I'm more of a consultant.
More of a specialist consultant.
Right.
And we co-manage. You work directly with the primary care.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay.
Absolutely.
What about insurance? Do you accept insurance? How does that work?
I don't accept insurance. People do get a bill,
like a super
receipt.
Bill? Like a receipt?
Yeah, that has everything it needs, diagnoses, codes, things like that to submit, but usually it's out of network.
On their behalf.
Gotcha. So a lot of people use their HSA. That's how it's been working.
Okay. Last question. Ready?
Okay.
If you have a friend coming to Rochester who's never been here, where are you taking them?
I've heard you ask other people that. I'm like, I don't know. There's an answer you're supposed to give?
No, there's not.
And one of them is we have a great backyard.
Are you from here?
No, I'm from Long Island.
Okay, but you practice here your whole career.
Yeah, I've been here since 97.
Okay.
But we have this backyard, and we have a fabric gazebo up top, and on the bottom we have a hot tub, and we have these giant hammock chairs that hang from underneath our deck, which are just hypnotizing. And it's all it's Forever Wild behind us, and we have a pond. And one thing I think happens when you get older, you're very amused by all the animals out there, like fox, and there's just turkeys and all this. So it's really nice and peaceful just to
talk
hang
about
out there.
De-stressing, right? Just go in your backyard.
Absolutely. So if someone's going to be here for a short time, we'll probably go sit out in the hammock chairs.
Why leave, right?
Right.
I'm going to come crash in those hammocks, I think.
There you
go. Well, Doc, I really appreciate your time. I know you're heading out of town right now, taking your daughter to college, so. Thank you for your time.
Stony Brook.
And your knowledge, and thank you for what you're doing in the community. So we really appreciate it. Thank you, listeners. If you guys have yet to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, I would really appreciate that. I love your feedback. Keep it coming. And buckle up. I got a couple great guests lined up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, I'm Dr. Matt Driscoll, owner and operator of Driscoll Chiropractic in Webster, New York. Are you dealing with aches and pains on a daily basis? I'm here to tell you that it does not have to be like that. I want to help you get out of pain. I want to help you solve your problems. I want to unravel what happened in the past to lead to where you're at now. So if that's you and you have questions about your health, call me, text me, email me. Go to my website, DriscollChiropracticNY.com. Read a little bit more about myself and my approach. You can call or text 585-672-3870. You can email me, info@DriscollChiropracticNY.com. You can find me on Facebook, Driscoll Chiropractic NY, or on Instagram @Dr.Driscoll. One more thing, guys, if you don't mind popping over to Apple Podcast reviews and leaving me a 5-star review or any star, it doesn't matter. It's just feedback for me. And the goal and the mission of this podcast is to reach more people and to help more people. So thanks again, guys, for listening. It means the world to me. Buckle up. I got some great guests lined up. Talk to you soon.